The 4 steps that we discuss in the handout that's in your book for irrigation water is assessing your irrigation water, then sampling programs, documentation, and reassessment. And so the first thing you need to do when it comes to irrigation water on your farm is to identify all the sources of water that you use on your farm. So the sources of your irrigation water, if that's city water or well water or surface irrigation water. Also the sources of your drinking water is important, and your hand washing water are all important to identify. And then for your irrigation water, it's recommended that you do some sampling to establish a baseline for your water quality. And then for all of these things, you need to document those systems and then reassess that on an annual basis, because water quality changes over time, and that's why you can't just assess the first year and make a decision on your water quality, because it may change from year to year. And so based on your sampling results, you may want to make some changes in your practices. So also in your assessment, you might want to use a site map to identify if you're using surface irrigation water. You may have upstream influences. If there's farming systems upstream, that's important to document, as well as potential areas where runoff may affect your irrigation water. And then if you have a water body that has high counts for fecal coliforms, which is the bacteria that's used as an indicator for potential pathogen presence, you may want to consider making changes in your irrigation system. And kind of what we describe as when you look at food safety on the farm, kind of my job is to give you a pair of food safety goggles to go back and look at your farming system. And once you get those food safety goggles, you think about your system in a whole different way. And so Andy's going to talk about some of the changes that have been occurring here at the WSU system since they acquired their food safety goggles.
Exactly. When Karen started, we undertook gaps evaluation and trying to figure out what aspects of our farming operation we needed to really spend some time on and do a better job of handling our produce, particularly produce that is eaten raw before it's cooked. So if you would have been here last year or any previous years, we were overhead irrigating our entire study here. We worked with one of the local irrigation companies to design a system for us because getting water to move where you want it and how you want it requires a little bit of technical knowledge. We started with this about halfway through the season. It's been a really hot season this year, so we had to get some drip irrigation out here sooner. We just used, a normal drip header line. It was about 3/4 inch diameter, and we had trouble running water to the other end because of loss of friction, which is why now you'll see we start with about a 2-inch line coming from our irrigation, and then it steps down as it goes through. And then every so often we break off into a header here with then a smaller than the normal irrigation 3/4 inch line from there. And we have one drips line for every row we have in the field. So our beds are 60 inches wide, and depending on what we're growing, we'll either use 2 rows, 3 rows, or 1 row. We're double cropping lettuce here. This is the second crop. We've already harvested once. We have that in 2 rows. Broccoli, we've just finished up last week. That's planted in 2 rows. And the squash is planted in 1 row, so it just has a single line there. And before we switched to this larger system, it was really difficult to get water to move. We're generally happy with the way this is going now. It does cause some problems with how we move tractors in and out of the field because we can't drive over this, so we're spending a lot of time backing. So this time next year, this main line will be buried underground, probably out to about here, and then we'll have just a leader running into our header situation, so I can bring tractors in and out through the field. And it changes how you think about irrigation. When you're sprinkler irrigating, you can get caught up really quick. You turn it on for 3 or 4 hours, and you're like set. With drip irrigation, you got to think of what you're doing. We used to irrigate once a week, every 2 weeks. Now, last week when it was hot, we irrigated 3 times last week, about a half hour, 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on which crop. The squash got about an hour and a half, and the broccoli and the spinach got about half hour to 45 minutes 3 times last week. So it definitely gives you a different thinking of how you've done it. And we've been real happy with it. It's reduced the amount of time we spend weeding. which is one real benefit for it. With an overhead irrigation, you're re-wetting the whole row. Every time we would overhead irrigate, we'd get another bloom of weeds. So it's been really nice this year not having quite as much weed control. Of course, it's been a much drier year than normal, so we have less weeds than we would normally have anyhow. So that's worked out really well. So we've been really happy. The change you'll see next year is the main line will be buried. This has no external source of power. It's all battery operated or pressure differential run. And it's got when we run it, this rinses the filter, so it goes through a rinsing cycle every now and again to flush the filter. And depending on how dirty your water is, you may have to manually clean it. We're now on our creek. They do yearly cleaning of the creek from too much plant vegetation in there. So when they do that, our filter really gets dirty, and I have to do a manual clean every week or so. And that's sort of where we're at now on it. But basically, we run the pump. We've been on this station for about 100 years doing farming. So we've got every kind of pipe under the ground. We've got cement pipe, we've got asbestos pipe, we got plastic pipe, we got steel pipe, aluminum pipe. We got every kind of pipe. So we didn't know how to calculate loss from our pump to here. So we're running about 60 pounds of pressure at our pump head, and we're running about 55 pounds here that goes out to our system and then is distributed. And with that amount of with our pump, it's a variable speed pump, so it'll sort of keep up on how much is going out. We can drip irrigate the whole field in one setting, which is really nice considering we used to have to do this in several sets.